Hi everybody, it's me, the Fetch, host of Inside the Eye Live. Before the Sunday mainstream media political pundit talk shows, there is Inside the Eye Live, where we break down some of the weekly mainstream media talking points before the talking points even get aired. Add in some entertaining stories, weather, cats, intriguing and informative guests, and you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, the Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lesson and Dr. Sasha Lesson.
Together we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lesson.
We have a panel on Anunnaki with our panelists, Gillian and Green. And today we're going to focus on Gillian and Janet are Anunnaki Experiencers, meaning that we've had encounters and a soul connection with the Anunnaki while we were here on this early. And Dr. Sasha are Anunnaki, and Gillian and Janet also research the Anunnaki. Are authors who investigate the ancient in our worlds and homes of the extraterrestrials who interact with humanity. Eventually, we connect the dots and a greater picture of our reality emerges. We focus on the positive timeline away from the catastrophic paradigms of global war and mass planetary destruction. Thoughts are deeds, what we imagine, image manifests. So join us as we switch channels, change timelines to the multiverse that respects all consciousness, all life, all beings, and especially our beloved planet, Mother Earth. And today we have Gillian-Dearmond. I'll tell you a little bit about her. Dearmond-Green. And she was born clairvoyant in Yorkshire, England. Throughout her childhood and until the present, she has spoken many times to her personal guide, whom she calls David, who is also known as Hermes. Over the years, Hermes has taught her many things regarding the development of her spirituality. For many years, she has taught metaphysics and done clairvoyant readings for others in the United States and abroad. And Billy Carson is an avid blogger and social media manager. He currently owns and manages over a dozen social media accounts with followers totaling over 1 million. Billy Carson is the founder of number 4 Bidden Knowledge on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. And topics discussed range from ancient suppressed knowledge to current day events. Billy Carson is also an expert host on the new original streaming series by Gaia named Deep Space. This series is an exploration of the secret space program and the types of technologies being used along with their potential origins. And there's much more about Billy and Gillian on our website on aquarianradio.com. Sasha, what would you like to say before we bring on our guests?
Really listen up, because Gillian is going to tell us about our great friend, Hermes, and who's been actively helping us and is here he's an Anunnaki, and she knows him personally, and is going to be able to share what his wisdom is, some of his wisdom for us. And Billy, last time was on our show, just totally brought our ratings to the sky with his revelation of pyramids on Mercury, and all kinds of information about the secret space program and the kinds of things that Billy has been able to actually find in uncensored photographs, undoctored photographs, looking again at old pictures. And so he's got some amazing information that he's put together, and we're going to get into that again. But you want to hear more.
All right, and it looks like we don't have Gillian here yet, but we do have Billy. Is that correct, Mad Thomas?
Yeah, Billy Carson. Yes, you never give me the contact for the other one.
Oh, I did. I must be typing it into the wrong place, but I'll pull it up. Let's start with Billy. Billy, hi. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, we hear
can
you
hear
very
you.
well. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Thomas Gillian's number so he can pull her on the show.
Glad you didn't get shot in the airport, man.
Oh my goodness, it was crazy. My wife's best friend actually worked in the same terminal and was there at the time that it happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you were there at the airport or just your wife's friend?
No, my wife's best friend. So she called her right away and told her that there was an incident going on at the airport way before the news, probably about 30 minutes before the news, made it public. So there definitely was an incident there. But there's a couple of just weird scenarios because some people are saying there was 3 people involved, and some people are saying that there was only just the one guy, and then some people are saying that the 3 people were in collusion with the one guy who actually pulled the trigger. So it was a very, very interesting situation.
Wow.
Well, I wonder what they're going to do now, because that's very easy for someone to duplicate. Just
very easy.
Send it in your luggage, go to the men's room and take it out and start shooting.
Yeah, very bizarre.
Yeah. Well, they don't do the security on the other end. So they make us go through all this stuff going in, but there's nothing on the other end when you're picking up your luggage. So they'll have to start, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Somehow he got it through, unless it was an inside job.
So tell us more about your research. We're still trying to get Gillian on the show.
So let's so the people that are just tuning in for the first time, there's 2 main questions that I have. One is what about these pictures of structures that you've been able to find, and what are the indications of past civilizations and present occupation of in our inner solar system of planets and moons and what's really out there? Understanding that we've got limited data, but you have encompassed all of this information and sort of like your best take on it at this time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've accessed literally over 1 million raw images now from the NASA, the European Space Agency, and also the Indian Space Agency, which is public access data, publicly accessible data. Doesn't require any type of clearance or anything to get access to. A lot of people just don't know that it exists. So they don't know, and to people who do know that they exist because they've seen them on shows, don't know where to look. So
we Gillian, so excuse the noise. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I heard. I'm like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah, just excuse the noise. We're trying to get Gillian.
Okay, no problem.
Good evening.
Hi, Gillian. Well, it's Janet and Sasha and Billy and Thomas. We got you.
Oh, hello.
Hello, Gillian. Just listen up. Billy's rapping about what they've learned from the photographs in the public domain. Close examination shows us about the structures on planets and moons in our inner solar system. We're starting with that. Gillian and Billy meet each other. Say hi to each other.
Hello, Billy.
Hey, I'm glad you got on here. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say.
Ah, well, that's nice.
All right.
So, are we actually talking about the other structures?
Yeah. So Billy's just starting his rap. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all I know, and I can tell you a little story about this, which may or may not be true. I don't know, but my understanding has always been that the Anunnaki had, of course, a refueling base in Mars years ago, right? And it was closed down for a very long time. And in 1991, I think it was, a number of them went back, leaving this planet. The ones that had stayed on this planet returned to Mars to reopen that base. And it was just one of those things that, oh, that's interesting, but I really didn't pay too much attention to the information until my dear father died in 2002. And he'd always been in contact with the same people and had a really good, ongoing, friendly connection with them. They were like next door neighbors to him all his life. And so about 3 weeks after he had died, he turned up again and he said, oh, I just wanted you to know where I've gone. And I said, what? Where are you, Daddy? He said, well, I'm on Mars. So he said, my new address is Marsian 1. Well, Marsian 1, of course, is the old refueling base. So I guess my father has moved residence and is now on Mars. And that may sound too fantastic to a lot of people, but I have no problem. I have no problem accepting it, simply because I'm very well aware that in the Anunnaki hierarchy, one doesn't stay dead very long. It's usually a 3 or 4 day process to reintroduce you to your new body that's already waiting for you. And this, it's not like the cloning they do on this planet, the political cloning they do here. It's a different procedure, but it does transfer everything to a new body which is waiting for you. And indeed, I remember being told by one of my Anunnaki friends many, many years ago that the reference in the Christian Bible, which talks about the Book of Life, is actually a complete record of all the DNA of the Anunnaki who are or have been on this planet, so that when they go back off this planet, back home, if you like, their new body is already prepared for them. So all I know about structures on other planets are, of course, the one I've just told you about, and the home planet I grew up on, which in the town of Urtikia, and that was beautiful buildings there. Insofar as I knew them, I was a young person when I left there, but I remember a lot of glass-like, it isn't glass, but glass-like buildings. And what I found interesting in this lifetime here was the stories of those Native American, I believe the Anasazi, and that built in the canyons. You know, they built up the canyon walls because that was very much like, just a different material, but very much like the buildings that I remember from home. Same thing. So that's really all I know.
Gillian, how big were the people on your home planet? How tall were they? What size?
Well, I'm always small. It seems I'm just small wherever I am. So I guess when I'm at home, I'm about 5'8". I'm not 5'8". That's not true. That's a mistake. Let me rephrase that. When I'm at home, I'm between 6'8" and 7 feet tall. My father is about 9 feet, and most of the friends that I know who are on it.
Okay, sorry folks, my net went down. We're trying to get everybody back here. Well, Billy, I got you back, but I think I got you, don't I? Billy?
Hello?
I got you back, but I ain't got Janet and them back.
Okay. Oh, man. I think we just rescheduled everything. I guess it was a power outage or something.
My internet just went down.
Oh, okay.
There's Janet now. I'll try and get the other guest.
Okay, we're back on. Okay, hold on.
Okay.
He's going to call you.
Okay, I'm on.
Hang up, Gillian. You stay, Billy. We're on too. Okay.
Good.
Okay, so if you can get Gillian, that'll be good. Are you still there, Mad? Thomas?
Yes, ma'am. I'm trying to make a phone call.
Okay, good.
So where I was when we lost Billy, we were just we got to the point where there's all these photos in the public domain of the objects.
Hello, yes.
Okay, Gillian, just hold on 1 second. We're going to finish up about the photos, and then we're going to come back and get your story, because I want to start with some background on that. So let's have Billy talk about the photos, and then we'll switch to you. Okay.
Great.
Go ahead, Billy.
Okay, no problem. So we're glad to be back here. So we've downloaded over 1 million photos. These photos come from the European Space Agency, NASA, and the Indian Space Agency more recently, since they started their space program, which they sent a mission called MOM to Mars. Now, when I say we, I'm talking about a group that we have, a team of anomaly hunters. There's actually a total of about 20 of us, really, in the form of 12 groups under the umbrella of United Family of Anomaly Hunters. And so we've got quite a few eyes on this. It takes us a very long time, and we've scoured through thousands and thousands and thousands of photos looking for out-of-place objects, geometry that shouldn't be there, and things of this sort. And what we have discovered is primarily a lot of the stuff is on Mars, because Mars has the most satellite imagery and the most rover imagery than any other planet or moon in our solar system. We do have a lot of moon shots and moon images, but Mars, they literally have spent trillions of dollars going to Mars, and we've got so much data there that we kind of focus there mostly, but we still look at other places. Now, what we've discovered on Mars is absolutely astonishing, because through the imagery that we've been able to analyze and pick apart, we've discovered structures. Now, we've discovered structures that are that have been destroyed. We've discovered structures that are partially buried. We've discovered vehicles that appear to be destroyed or partially buried. But on the other hand, we've also discovered structures that are intact, that are in perfectly excellent shape, that don't have any damage to them whatsoever. We've discovered vehicles that are intact, that don't appear to be damaged in any way, shape, or form. And we've also discovered which one of the images, one of the greatest ones I've ever discovered, made it to the Gaia episode on Deep Space, episode 11 on TV, was an actual, what appears to be a military base on Mars, and it's got 2 tanks on the ground in this image. It's in McMurdo Valley. It's got what appears to be some type of a ground cannon and a helicopter in the air, and also another small airplane with swept wings in the air, banking and making a bank turn. So, and this is an actual image captured by the Opportunity rover in the early 2000s, and it's just an amazing, amazing discovery. So we see, yeah, this is one of the big, and I'll send you a copy of this to you as well, so you can put it up on your site for the viewers. So, yeah. Now, another one that we've discovered by Martine Graney is this one image, which I just forwarded to your email, by the way, Janet, is an image where, as a Curiosity rover is going by this this embankment, there's an actual group of people sitting there, and they're all looking over at the rover. Now, one person is in a chair with the back to the rover, and that person actually turns and looks around the chair to look directly at the rover. So these aren't old statues. These aren't, this isn't artwork. All of these, there's 5 of them sitting there, all turn to look at the rover. So they're alive.
Wow.
They're alive.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, let's connect the dots. So we have the ancient information. Sasha and Gillian and I, mainly I guess Sasha's got it by research. Gillian has it by her connection to the Anunnaki, which we will back up and describe that to our listeners so we fill in that gap. We have all the whistleblowers and secret space program people that are talking about being on Mars. So putting that together, Billy, is, oh, wow, this one's really good. I'll put those up on our site.
Great pictures, yeah.
Yeah, great pictures. So what's going on there? So this is an active military base, and these are human beings, or these look like humanoids. Are these?
They're humanoids. There's a combination of humanoid-looking people, and there's a combination of humans from Earth. There's people actually there from several different places right now.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the most interesting thing. They don't appear to all be Martians. So it's pretty interesting.
So Gillian, we'll pause right here. We'll keep going, but let me just interject. So Gillian, who's on Mars that you're aware of? And briefly back up, what's your source of information? Can you kind of explain that to our listeners and then answer my question about who's on Mars? What's your source of information?
Well, my source of information are my Anunnaki family and friends, with whom I've always been in touch, right? And obviously, I just told you the story of my father sending his holographic image back of himself and telling me where he was, and that he was laughing because he was 96 when he died, and he said, "They're teaching me now how to use the computer to develop star maps to Andromeda." That's what he said he was doing on Mars. That was his job. And the other source, of course, about information about Mars itself, I learned a lot many years ago from a man called Brian O'Leary, who was one of the original Apollo astronauts, who was trained for Mars terraforming. Now, that's way back in the 80s. So I am sure that they have both people from Earth, us humans, who have been there, and of course, you don't have to necessarily be military and have a space program to do that, because they will take you on a ship. I mean, the Anunnaki that I know of will pick you up and take you on a ship, take you to wherever they want you to go. So it does not surprise me that there is a mixture of people. And then I would expect there would be a variety of races, if you like, people from other planetary systems, not necessarily because there is a territorial grab going on among the many planets up there, but because over the millennia, the Anunnaki have connected with and taken with them. People have joined them from other cultures, from other planetary systems, as indeed I did myself many, many millennia ago. I was not originally, my soul's experience did not originate with the Anunnaki. I joined them millennia ago, and was invited to and chose them and said, okay, from now on, this will be the people that I'm with. In much the same way as I was born in England and been an American citizen for the last 40 years. You know, we can change our allegiance in a planetary way the same as we can on Earth. So I would expect there'd be a wide variety of people. And I know that it's a living, working base there. And I haven't seen any of this, of your pictures, Billy. I will try and get online. But it would not surprise me if many of the structures were very box-like. That's the only way I can describe it. Very oblong box sort of shapes, you know, the golden mean kind of shapes with very square-looking apertures in, because this is very typical of the way the Anunnaki build things and put things together, like you see in South America, in many of those, or in Santorini, in the ruins in Santorini, that sort of very rounded corner, boxy shape with square windows and square doors. And so if that's in your pictures, that's very typical Anunnaki design. Very simple.
Absolutely. Well, there's actually a lot of structures that resemble exactly what you just described, not only on Mars, but also on Mercury and Venus. There's a huge city on Venus that resembles Santorini almost identically. Matter of fact, there's a lot of cities on Earth that mirror other what appear to be remnants or traces of cities on several planets and moons in our solar system.
Yeah. If
yes, I'm sure there are, because
to the Anunnaki, it's like on Earth, everybody regarded your grandfather, Hermes, Gillian.
Hermes Trismegistus.
The one who would go and show people how to lay out their pyramids so it could generate electricity and show the stars.
Right.
And all that.
Right.
And so,
he was trained by his father to take over from his father, and he is now the chief scientist of the Anunnaki. He's taken over that job from his father, and he's brilliant. I mean, he actually is so brilliant in this field. He can actually replace a head. If somebody gets decapitated, he can reconnect the head to the body. I mean, that level of technology and knowledge and expertise with a complete spinal and nervous system is absolutely phenomenal. And so he's brilliant. as a scientist, he's absolutely brilliant. As a mathematician, he's brilliant. He did the original math that ended up as the Mayan calendar. I mentioned that to you before, that he told me years ago. He said, forget 2012. Nothing will change in 2012. He said, it's, as you know, because I was actually there, he said, it's almost 4,000 years since I did the mathematics for the Mayan calendar, and everything's changed. Human calendars have changed, and just things have varied so much over the last 4,000 years. And he said, I think I did tell you this, he said his latest calculation, and this is about 11 years ago, he said, my latest calculation for the break in the space-time continuum when the switch from the old to the new occurs is 2025, winter 2025 into 226. That's what should have been the 212 is now 225, 226, when we can expect that break in the space-time continuum and the new cycle beginning, the new cycle of human history beginning. So it's a very exciting time. But can I ask you
Gillian,
something, Billy?
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait, Gillian, I got to tell you that, it was in 2025 BCE that the nuking of up-leveling of Sodom and Gomorrah and the fallout over Sumer occurred. So 2025 and the CE is the balance of the 2025 BCE.
Interesting.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right there. But I wanted to ask you something, Billy, that you've on your photographs. I don't know if Janet mentioned it, but recently my husband and I were on one of those little Alaska cruises, and on the way back, one evening I went out, it looked very foggy, pointed my camera, took a bunch of photographs, and what I actually got was a slew, not just one or two, but probably 2 or 3 dozen ships coming in, just coming down. They're all over, and I'm wondering. First of all, they were different. These were definitely, I would say, they probably were multidimensional because of the light. It's like this huge column of light going out, but that's not the ship. The ship is just a relatively small thing at the front end, and what you see is either the speed it's moving with or the light. But this was not high up in the sky. This was probably 500 feet above the ocean. I mean, the camera was hardly angled at all. And so I'm wondering if I could send those to Janet or send them to you and have you look at them and tell me what you think. Because it was interesting, but it was a whole fleet. It wasn't one or two. It was like a fleet of landing craft. That's what I thought it was, a whole fleet of landing craft. And I happen to know that there is a substantial base up in Nome, Alaska, but there's also the new landing path, which goes round about the 50th parallel and ends up in Canada, up near in Alberta, slightly northwest of Edmonton, Alberta. And I'm sure there'd be some interesting photographic images from there. Have you seen any?
Oh, yeah.
Have you come across any?
Quite a few bases up there, and actually also as well as at the South Pole. There are above-ground Anunnaki bases in existence right now, according to Major Dames, who I've talked to personally several times. The last time I saw him, I spent about 17 hours with him straight, getting a lot of information from him. And the above ground bases are known about by all the world's governments. They cannot speak out on any of this information, and the lights that you saw accompanying those crafts that you saw in those photos, what happens is it's not that they're multi-dimensional, so to speak. It's because they are actually utilizing what they call anti-gravity bubbles. So when this particular area around the vehicle or the ship generates a specific amount of heat, what happens is photons emit light when they heat up to a certain temperature. And that's why a lot of the UFO sightings are always orbs or glowing orbs but the orb is just the side effect of the actual photons emitting heat from reaching a specific level of temperature. Inside there's an actual vehicle or vessel or a ship that would be identifiable, but for the most part, a lot of the times you can't really see them because of the glowing photons.
What I found interesting was
is there a way that you can use a filter and get past the photons that are and get some better idea of the ship itself, Billy?
That's pretty tough. We've tried to do that before, but what happens is because what happens with a camera aperture, it's actually capturing photons. So it's not like a normal obfuscated image from NASA where they're just using blurring or copying, pasting, things over that you can burn through with a burn tool. These are the actual real photons that were actually in the original image. So you can't burn or erase them. Otherwise, what happens is you just make a black spot on the image. So it's very difficult to see past the glowing photons.
Well, on these, as they're coming in, as I say, they were very low. On the front end of these tubular-like beams, and they were total straight line beams. There's nothing fuzzy about it. But on the front end, you can see the nose of the ship, if you like. You can see the circle with this bumpy circle in the middle. That's the front end of a land. It looks like a landing craft to me, as I know them. The ones that I'm familiar with. It's just fascinating. But when you're talking about all these bases that are existing, there is one thing I'd like to touch on, if I may, and it's not really a sidetrack. Recently, I exchanged emails briefly with a gentleman who is a great researcher into the Anunnaki and has worked with the UFO community, I understand, for a very, very long time. He's written many books. He's a great lecturer. I met him years ago at a global science conference. And I have great respect for his work. But when I raised a question with him, he said, his email response was, well, you don't want anything to do with Marduk because he's really evil and there's a lot of bad things going on. And at the same time as I had that interaction with him just a week or two ago, I'd also just decided I should reread David Icke's books on the reptilians because so many people were asking about this reptilian thing. So I would like to comment on that, if I may. Marduk is my grandfather's half-brother, right? And when I was a girl at home on another planet, right, I was never allowed to mention Marduk's name at the table. It was not considered polite. Now, this is something I've known all my life, long before anybody down here that I knew of was talking about the Anunnaki, long before Sitchin wrote his books about them, or anybody else, right? I mean, I'm talking about from when I was a little girl, right? It was clear in my mind that I was not to mention Marduk because he was the black sheep of the family and everybody was displeased with him and there'd been big fallings out and the usual family history stuff. But about, must be nearly 20 years ago now, they had a Grand Council meeting, right? The Anunnaki had a council meeting, which they do fairly regularly, at least, a couple of times a year. And this was in November, the November meeting. And as I'm sure you're familiar with, Billy, with the ships that are circling our planet all the time, around the 21st of October every year, they all change quadrants. All the ones that have stayed around for this last cycle, they change their location, I guess just for a change of scenery, but they swap sides, so to speak. And so it was at that period of time, as they went into November, they had a council meeting, and at the meeting, it was agreed under certain circumstances. I'm saying 20 years ago. This was when it was told to me, right? The incident occurred a long time ago in Anunnaki time, right? It was agreed that Marduk, under certain circumstances, would come back to this planet and take charge of things in a governmental sort of way, almost you might say, horror's one world government, right? It's probably best not to stress that, right?
Yeah.
But it was done under the absolute promise that this time there would be no direct interference with humans because it caused so much trouble last time, as we all know, and that it would only be in the mode of trying to help things rather than control or hinder them. So I was a bit disturbed. Now, whether everybody expects Marduk to keep his word or not is another matter. How much of it is tongue-in-cheek is another matter. But half of the Anunnaki have agreed to stay for the next 300 to 400 years to help Marduk achieve this worldwide with other people, with the governments on the planet, the people on the planet, before they leave to pursue their own interests, which they began in that 91 to 98 period of going back to what they used to be, right? The ones that stay are going to stay with Marduk and try and make this their home, this planet here. And so I'm distressed that all...
which has he chosen to stay or to go? Hermes.
To stay. Marduk is going to stay. David is going to go. Hermes is going to go, right? But we'll be here 300 to 400 years. I mean, he already made it plain to me, Gillian, whether you like it or not, you might as well enjoy yourself because you're going to be here for the next 300 or 400 years while we work this system. That's how long it's going to take to put this whole planet and the human race, hopefully this time on the right track through just helping them rather than trying to dictate to them. So that's time allowed for genetic things and all kinds of stuff that's going on with them. And so I am a bit distressed by all this talk about they're evil and they're reptilian, right? And I would point out to anybody listening that first and foremost, throughout this entire creation, there are multiple shapes and sizes of the human race. And some of them may look more reptilian than others, right? That is true. It is also true that every human being throughout the universe, and especially I want to stress it on this planet, has reptilian DNA in their system. This is the buccal mucosa, as you know, inside the mouth, the lining of your nose, your throat. These areas of tissue areas of the body are pure reptilian DNA, and they come from the evolutionary process on this planet of the evolving people, the evolving beings, right? And so it's hard sometimes. People forget that the human race on this planet developed out of the ocean, just like Darwin told them, and then they were genetically altered as an evolving animal species. They were genetically altered to become Homo sapien. So we all have reptilian DNA. That's just a fact, right? And try and place the evil reptilian idea into people's minds and connect it with the Anunnaki. I strongly wish to protest that. And that's what I have reread in all David Icke's work. He has said that the reptilians who do exist, who did come into our universe by mistake, untold millennia ago, they did make a base for themselves on Draco. They are of a different value system, a different culture entirely to humans. They are not human. They are a true alien species because they came from a completely different creation. And so they have a different values. It's not compatible with our values, and they are dangerous, and yes, they are out there, and yes, they have an interest in our planet, but they are not the Anunnaki. And I really want to take this opportunity to stress that.
Okay, but we have to take a break, and we'll be back in a few minutes, and we will come back. Thank you for listening to Sacred Matrix. See you in a few minutes.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth-dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays, midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite, surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing, in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panometric fan. The lineup consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambifacient lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal lotus-o-deltoid type placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator, every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible tremie pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the gram meters.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio, taking the confusion out of transmutated lunar girdle springs for 4 years and running. Revolution Radio, the #1 listener-supported alternative media radio on the planet.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to Aquarian. No, this is Aquarian Radio. This is the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Sorry, I've lost myself in time and space. Before we get back to our show, I want to remind everybody to please go over to the donation button on freedomslip.com and make your donation. $1, $5, $15, $20, whatever you donate will be greatly appreciated. And we do thank you very much for your donation. And by the way, Happy New Year. Ahmad, Thomas, are there any specials going on?
No, ma'am. Except they're voting. If you for $1 you can cast a vote for your favorite host, and we're just wanting to see how many votes are gathered.
Well, all my friends are cheap, so I don't think.
Well, it's only $1. It's $1. You put $1 in and put your favorite host down, and we're gonna tally it up and see because everybody wants to know how many listeners there are. So.
I'm just genial. Anyway, that sounds good. It's a good idea. So we really need your donations here at the show to keep us up and running because sometimes it's very tight. Not always making the bills every month. So, all right. So we're going to come back. Sasha, do anything that we're going to
just to underline the last thing that was said is the Anunnaki ain't reptilians. We all have reptilian in us, but the identification with Anunnaki and reptilian is false, according to Gillian, who is an Anunnaki and a direct witness and can really talk to that.
Right. So my question is, how did the Anunnaki DNA get in there? But I want to pass our little invisible talking stick to Billy, so he has a turn to address these issues, and so we'll go pass the baton to Billy. Take it away, Billy.
Okay. Well, just based off of the research that I've done and some of my team, we've come to the conclusion that there was a pre-existing race on this planet that was reptilian, totally separate from beings that came down from the sky. So we're talking about the Ubaid, culture, which there were actual little what do you call those carved, or I guess you would call them little carvings of them discovered in Iraq and Mesopotamia, where they actually, you can see that they look just like reptilian people. Even one is breastfeeding a baby. I actually have 2 replicas of those little Ublade. I'm trying to remember what the word I'm looking for here. Statuettes. Thank you. The statuettes. I appreciate that. Yes. That's the word I'm looking for. So I have 2 of them here, actually. The replicas of the actual original ones are real life-size molds. So these are here. And then also you have the fact that that people do have, every single human being does have natural reptilian DNA inside their body. It's even in the base of the brain. Is more like the reptilian mind. So that part is all accurate and all true. And there were some advanced type reptilians, terrestrials, living on this planet already. A lot of them lived underneath the ground here already. The Anunnaki, can't be mistaken for reptilians because the Anunnaki, according to everything that I've read, we look like them. And if we look like them, then they must look like a human being or a humanoid that appears to have human features. Much larger structure, much larger bone structure, larger jaws, larger skulls. If you read the Bible, you found that the angels, which were Anunnaki basically, were identifiable. Even though they looked like humans, they were you can distinguish. People were able to distinguish right away an angel from a human. Even though they were both in the flesh, they were both wearing clothes, they're both carrying weapons and drinking and making merry and all this in the Bible. The average person can still distinguish, which means they did have a little something different about them. Most likely was their size and the shape of their head. I think the more pure blood you go, I think the bigger the skull was. And then also, most likely the type of clothes that they wore were probably not just, wearing like a rag. They probably had a little bit more high-tech gear on. But we look like them. So I don't think they were at all.
The stories about when Nergal and Ninurta came to Gomorrah and Sodom, they were wearing their full battle dress, getting ready to nuke everybody the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. And also their light. Don't forget the light. When I used to do classes in metaphysics, I used to say, I would teach people how to see auras, right? I'd show them how to do that. And then I would say, no, I don't want any of you saying, oh, my aura is big, my aura is this, my aura is that, because the reality is that the light should be in you, not outside you. It's because you fill your cells with cabbage soup instead of filling them with light that you push all the light out of you. The light should be in you. And when you get the light in you, when you become enlightened or Christed, right, you have the Christos, the light within you, then that light emanates out through the semi-permeable membranes of the cells and you glow. And so the Anunnaki have always had that glowing, and that made them very recognizable. Indeed, it's not an untrue thing in the Bible when it says, or wherever it says it, you can't look in the face of God. You know, if you look in the face of God, you'll die. Well, they're talking, of course, not about the creator, the ultimate creator of the universe. They're talking about old Anu or whoever is in charge at the time, because their light, their radiance is so great that your eyesight really can't bear it. Normal eyesight can't bear it. It's so, they shine like the sun. So the Anunnaki are very recognizable. The shining ones, yeah, exactly, the shining ones. And you know, when you mention those obeyed people, it might be worth mentioning that all those who complain about the interference of the Anunnaki and want to see them gone and blah, blah, they might realize that if it hadn't been for the Anunnaki interference, they might have developed to this day looking like the obeyed people. It's very possible, you know. I mean, they were an original species on the planet, so you're quite right there, and they have always existed. That's true, and in some areas maybe they still do. You know, there maybe are places under the ground or hidden away. There are still places on this planet where nobody's ever been, and who knows what's hidden there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you want to talk about, Billy?
How about Sasha?
Okay, well, let's. I want to go back to. We had this great conversation when we were offline about your grandfather, about Hermes, and first of all, how practical and how intelligent he was, and talking to a little girl and amusing her, and what an interesting, brilliant, but also practical kind of a person he was. And so Hermes, of course, is Nigashita or Thoth, and
yes.
I'm glad to hear that he's going to stay around for another 300 or 400 years to help us while Marduk makes amends. I hope he makes amends.
Yeah,
well, he certainly...
and this is similar,
yes,
I interjected it back to you. This is similar to the information that's coming to us from A.R. Borden. Are you familiar with A.R. Borden, Gillian? And he said that they had the ongoing meetings, and he said he attended the meetings. But A.R. Borden died in, 2013?
Or disappeared.
Or he faked his own death and disappeared because he was one of the Earthlings that was attending the ongoing meetings with the Anunnaki and other species. So can you tell us a little bit more about the meeting and then your relationship with Hermes, your grandfather?
Well, okay. I think I want to say something here. I just mentioned to Billy because I wouldn't want to mislead any of your listeners, right? My only knowledge is my own knowledge. That is to say, I have been to the meetings. I actually have a seat. I have this. They endowed me, if you like, with the seat of 35. But that's because of family connections, let's put it that way. And although in terms of years, I'm really, really ancient, I first came to this planet with David, not long before he was my grandfather, right? We had a different connection. We were together. We'd been together for a very long time. And we came to this planet. It was almost like a day trip. We came down to South Africa, Southeast Africa, to look for a site to build the research science station. So you know how long ago that was, almost 500,000 years, over 400,000 years ago. Now, sometime after that, I was in a terrible accident and killed I mean, literally killed. And I was shot out from my body. Whatever happened to me, I don't remember. It's like as suddenly I was in a big black hole. The next thing I remember was being a free spirit, you might say, in the universe. And at that time, funny enough, I looked rather like a giant pink praying mantis. That was my form. That was the shape I held together, this giant-sized praying mantis in this pink, rose pink color. But I spent eons of time just going around the universe looking at things, not actually choosing to embody again. And they got me back by rebirthing me to the Anunnaki. That's how they, if you like, rescued me from just floating around doing nothing, right? But that was a long time later. That must have been about 100,000 years or more later. And they rebirthed me on the home planet, so that and that's how Ningishita now became my grandfather. Ningishita, by the way, in English is Lord Gish of Sheba. That's how it would translate, is Lord Gish of Sheba, and it was the title he was given for developing that science station that we'd gone and looked at, because that was in those days the land of Sheba. And when I came,
Gillian, was he your mate? Was he your lover partner?
At one point,
yes, he was. He was, absolutely. And then he turned up. Now he's, like my grandfather. And I think that's why he spoils me so much and always has. But I was then reborn to the Anunnaki in an actual physical birth, not a recloning, but a new birth. And that's from that point, that's when I came to this planet in this cycle. This is about 14,500 years ago when I came and landed in the Aegean. So everything from leaving Urtikir, from being at home on Urtikir, my home life there, growing up there, my elder brother, who was a little fleet captain and commander of 12 small landing craft, and he brought me down to this planet, and we had, we never got off again. We got stuck here. And I've been on this planet ever since. Pardon?
How did you come into the Gillian form? Because I have a similar story, but I just want to know your story.
Well, how I became Gillian was that about 3,500, nearly 4,000 years ago, David was being Thoth, the moon god in Egypt, and I call him David, but Ningishita had been Thoth, the moon god in Egypt, and he had a big falling out. And you remember this because it's in all the stories. He fell out with his brother. Ra won at that time. Ra took over and kicked David out, kicked Thoth out. Yeah. And so several hundred of us went with him to South America, which is the underworld. South America is classified as the underworld. And we went down to what is the area that is now known as Peru. We were on a great plateau somewhere up there. I've never been, but that's where we went. And we traveled from there up and down South America and all the way up into the northern countries to England and these places for years. And that was the period when David was developing the Mayan calendar and building henges all over, the circular henges like Stonehenge. He was building those all over Europe, in England, everywhere. So we were trekking about a lot and doing things like that. And in the northern part of Peru, there were still some local groups of religious cults, the high priest cults, where they cut your heart out, those, blood offerings, human sacrifice cults up in the mountains. And at that time, I was the equivalent of about, 18, 19 years old, right? Young. And when I'd first landed 14,500 years ago, I had met a young officer off one of the ships, and we kind of got attached to each other. Now, remember, at this point, David Ningishita is my grandfather, so he's in charge of me. He's taken me, and I'm about 17 or 18. And I run off with this young officer from Peru. We thought if we headed north, we would just head north. Well, of course, you know what happened. We got caught, we got chased. I never knew what happened to the young man. In that life, I never knew what happened to him. The last thing I knew about him is he was diving down one alleyway in this town, and I was diving down another. And I got caught. I got given the purple drink, the poison drink, dragged up the steps, and my heart cut out. Now, what they did, they took my living heart and threw it in the fire. Usually, apparently, their habit was to drain the blood from it and drink the blood. But the high priest knew who he had captured and knew he captured this Anunnaki. And so he threw my heart straight into the fire. And I don't know how controversial the next statement I'm going to make is, but I hold it to be a true statement, that the soul is a living thing. It's an energy that inhabits us and is us, is our eternal self, if you like, and carries knowledge and information from lifetime to lifetime. And that soul energy, whilst we are alive, is housed in the form of hydrogen molecules at the base of the heart, where the heart two ventricle chambers cross over. There's a tiny little space in there, and that's where those molecules hide out during our lifetime. So what happened when he threw my living heart into the fire, it wrecked my soul energy. It broke up. I was no longer a collected person. Those hydrogen molecules were scattered to the winds, you might say, and they had to be recollected. So when the Anunnaki left, which they did soon after, I could not go with them. I was never a whole person. So I had to stay here and be born into a human life cycle, which I have done many times in the last 3,500 years. I've had many cycles as a human, being born and dying and born and dying. And it's taken me all this time to fully collect all those pieces of myself back together into a total whole. I've always had memory, always, but it's never been complete. It's never been total. It's been like when somebody's been ill and they forget things or whatever. And it's taken me this long to collect myself. So this time I can actually leave with them. That's why I was a bit put out when they said, you're here for another 300 or 400 years. But that's how I got to be a human that's born in the normal human way, reborn and reborn and reborn. And this last time, right before I was born, I was kicking up a real fuss, kicking and screaming, I do not want to do this again. And they said, we promise you won't you won't mind. It'll be okay. You just do it and it'll be okay. But you have to do it. You have to keep doing this. And this is partly because of that scattering, but also because when you are born on a planet, you have a spiritual and esoteric frequency, a frequency connection to the core of that living planet, because the planet's a living thing as well. And so if you are born on that planet, you have a living connection to that planet. It's like a thread that, so when you die, pops you off into the astral and pulls you right back into another life, and over again. And until you are completed in whatever is completion for you, you can't break that thread. You can't escape that planet. And I just got stuck here, as I'm sure many hundreds or thousands of others have done over the years, that for whatever reason they've come from.
What do you need to complete? What do you need to complete? What do you need to
Well, funnily enough, what I needed to complete, so they told me fairly recently, was I needed to complete an appreciation of this planet itself, which I never really had. I didn't like it here. I just wanted to go. I just cried all the time. I want to go home. I want to go home. And in this lifetime even, when I was a small child, 2, 3 years old, right up to the time I was 10 or 11, I must have been horrible, I used to tell my mother all the time, you're not my real mother. You've stolen me and I want to go home. So I think that's been, as David said to me when I was in in my 60s, I was complaining about something. He said, "Oh, stop it, Gillian." He said, "I've listened to you whining for 60 years now, and I'm sick of it. Stop it." Just this constant.
What would you like to tell your mother, if right from your heart right now? What would you tell her about being born here?
Well, I probably, understanding now the need of the particular mother I had because of the mitochondria and the race memory component, I probably would like to say that I'm sorry I didn't appreciate her more. Mm-hmm. I think that's all I would really want to say. That I'm sorry. I apologize to her for not appreciating her. But then I think that's true of many of us. We don't appreciate what we have, do we? So I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
Each time you do that, you're taking back part of your soul essence.
Yes.
It's no longer tied up. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Billy, what would you like to add?
I don't have any latent memories as such. My family has been heavily tied in with the Anunnaki, and we pass down information to each other. And I was fortunate enough to get some information passed down to me. There's a movie that just came out called Hidden Figures, and it's about African Americans working behind the scenes at NASA to help achieve the Apollo and Mercury missions. And in that, the movie is primarily based on these three African American women. However, there were hundreds of African Americans working there, and they called them computers. This is before computers existed. Yeah, they were human computers. The term computer was given out later on to machines, but humans were the first computers, and they worked at NASA to create the trajectories, analysis, calculations for distance, and launch windows and so forth. Was all done by human hands and human brains. And the reason why I bring this up is because my grandfather, which I'm going to be getting some photos from my cousin, or I'm going to drive up to Melbourne to get the photos myself and bring them back so I can actually scan them in. He was commissioned by NASA to design the first launch tower for the space shuttle, and also build the space shuttle launch tower, which went for the first space shuttle launched in 1981. And also when the Great Sphinx was needing more restoration in the early 80s, my grandfather was also called and commissioned to head up the restoration of the Great Sphinx in Egypt. But it goes back further than that, all the way back to a megalithic structure that's still standing, made out of granite, crystallized granite in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, where my grandfather's family is from. And going back in the family record, we have quite a few, going back thousands of years, dealings where we have actually helped construct and build structures for the Anunnaki. And in this one particular structure that's still there in St. Thomas today, my mother and my aunt were actually there as kids playing around and went inside of the structure and were actually taken off the planet. And this was an amazing, bit of information to be passed down to me from my aunt. My mother passed away 7 years ago. And for her to tell me this and not knowing that I'm involved in all of this stuff and everything else was like really a mind-blowing situation for me. And then I was told that more information will be passed down to me, and it has. So then I have to pass information down to somebody in my bloodline, which would be one of my children. I have one in mind that I guess is going to take a lot of this information that I was given. But we have worked directly with them, and then I have, in my personal opinion, met somebody who didn't openly tell me that they were an Anunnaki, but I have quite a bit of a feeling that this person is a multi-billionaire person. I can't give out his name. He's forbidden anybody to take photos of him, but he heads up a very large publicly traded company. He's a multi-billionaire, and he gave me an unpublished book. And in this unpublished book, he gave it to me as a gift for me to analyze and read and study. And I haven't been able to get past the first few pages. That's how powerful this book is. And I've had it for about 7 or 8 months, I'm still trying to analyze and figure out what I'm actually reading. It's so incredible. Crystal technology, transferring consciousn's through into another person on another planet, almost like a virtual reality. This is some really, really, really out there stuff, and it's just amazing. So I really do believe that this person is an Anunnaki, and so it's just it's so out there, far out there. A lot of people can't really believe what they hear. But when I find the evidence of their existence in these pictures, and I bring what I consider solid evidence, that's actually something that you can see, touch, it's real.
Right.
The civilizations were here, so they were not only here, but they were in our entire solar system here. And I'm pretty sure, because of all the references to Orion and the Pleiades, that it was, more of an intergalactic type thing. They were probably outside of the solar system and out there in other solar systems within this sector or other sectors of this galaxy. So it's amazing.
I know why I always want to go to St. Thomas. I love St. Thomas. Whenever I get, I really do. I suggested to George, why don't we go and live in St. Thomas? I love it there. I love the energy there. So, and I expect to be there very shortly. So I'll have to look your family up. But you said so many interesting things. Then I want to say one of the things that David always taught me was, I give you information. Now you get to the library and verify it for yourself, right? In other words, finding empirical evidence has always been a key factor, that you don't ever just take something that somebody says and say, oh, yes, I believe that. You actually look for the evidence. So it's been exciting for me over the years. One of the magazines at American Scientist, over the years, David would tell me something, and 10, 15, 20 years later, there it would appear in American Scientist. I mean, it took them a while to get to it, but they would get there. And I think you're absolutely correct when you talk about family, that these are familial things, that it's, I don't know how you can be not connected without the family history. Because the race memory is coming down through your family. So all those things that you have that go back and back. I mean, my father was always connected. His father was connected. And one of the things that I remember David telling me when I asked him, I said, what is my father's actual role in all of this? Where does he fit in? Because he was very interesting man, my father. He was strict Church of Scotland Presbyterian in his upbringing, never used blasphemy or swore in his whole life. I mean, he just was a pretty straight-laced Victorian view of the world. But the other side of it was that he also always had extraterrestrial friends who visited him all the time, right? And a UFO was parked outside his home almost all his life. I guess that's how I always first connected with them, because Daddy was there with them, right? And his father, my father told me right before he died, he said that his father told him before he died, right? He said, son, I want you never to forget that your father is one of the L's. The ELs, right? And that was a strange thing to say, and involved in all kinds of different and interesting things. Like my grandfather was involved. He was a merchant mariner, but he was an engineer. And he and his friend, Mr. Rose, were involved in the industrialization of China. And the Anunnaki, in my memories, there is a really powerful connection with China. I spent about 5,000 years ago, I spent a lot of time in southwest China in a community there, and absolutely loved it. So there's a long Anunnaki connection with the Chinese people. And these connections, I think, are familial. they are historic. They do go back thousands of years in families, even if the family has lost its lineage.
Let me ask you a question about one particular Anunnaki who I've been studying, half Anunnaki. His name was Preya Pinnaker or something like that. Basically, he was the one who founded Angkor Wat and aligned it with the Great Pyramid and the whole rest of the grid. Did you know this fellow at all? He was in India for a while, and then he created Angkor Wat.
What was his name?
Preah, Preah.
Don't know. Do you, Billy? Do you know anything about it?
No, but I've read about the fact that he was one of the founders of Angkor Wat, and that's actually just 2 hours ago talking to my wife. Our next trip is going to be into Angkor Wat, most likely in February.
Oh,
interesting. So about people, because you said when Ningishita is about going to leave, and this other group of people that I said, who's going to be going with him? You said, JC. Now, if that's an allusion to Jesus
Christ.
And if you know Jesus, I'm so fascinated. I'd like to know what he's like and how you related with him and how he related to you.
Jesus Christ, you mean? Is that who you're asking me about?
You said JC.
Yes, JC and the boys, right? JC and the boys. One has to be very careful not to give offense. I have several friends who are very devout religious nuns, and when I refer to JC and the boys, they kind of giggle and say, "Oh, Gillian, you are naughty." But it's no offenses intended. All those people that are prominent in the Bible, both the Old and New Testament, are pure Anunnaki, as is Jesus Christ, right? And what concerns me about Christ is that I have many friends who go to Bible study classes and are very concerned, very, very religious, as being different to spiritual, right? Just very religious, very devout in their religions. And just as recently as last week, I decided that I would reread the book of Revelations as being the most relevant one at this point in history. Well, I didn't get past the first page because I ran into a little piece of wording there, which I think is very important. It says, and here I want to preface it by saying that if you are a Christian and you are a religious and you believe the Bible, if that's what you choose to believe, and you choose to believe that it is the Word of God, then you can't say, well, I believe it, but only the parts that I want to believe. You have to accept it all or nothing, right? Now, I understand the Old Testament is a collection of stories that tell the history of the Jews and the Anunnaki relationship on this planet. And I understand the New Testament as one of the Anunnaki coming back to try and set the human race straight and tell them how to live right. But I understand it as a series of stories, right? That's my personal view of it. But if you are one of those out there who does sincerely believe that it is the Word of God, then you have to say, in all honesty, well, then I have to believe every word. And right at the end of about verse 6 or 7 in the book of Revelations, in the first chapter, it speaks of John saying that Christ said, right? And he's making a comment, and he says and he was going to say something to God and his Father, right? Now, the religions all tell you Christ was God, capital G, creator of the universe, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost, the trilogy, right? But Christ says, and John repeats it in that particular piece of the Bible, he was saying something to God and his Father. Now, what is wrong with that statement? If God was his father, there would be no and. It would be God his father, right? Christ was, John would be saying God his father, not God and his father. That's two people, right? And I just ran across that, and it's never struck me before. In all these years, it never hit me. And I was showing it to somebody who is big into Bible study and things, and I said, I want you to go to your Bible class, and I want you to ask your teacher about this. Explain this to me, please. And it's not because I'm wanting to renegate the importance of Christ. I happen to believe that he was God-made man, meaning he had all the attributes of a creator. Because he could raise the dead and turn water to wine, he could do anything in the creative image, as David can, for example, as Ningashita can, right? And as many of the Anunnaki, not too many, but some of them can do. Right, they're at that level of development, and that is the level that they're trying to achieve again. It's the level of 50 where you can both be in time and in timelessness, where you can be in body or out of body, and that these are under your own control. These are, if you like, creative attributes or godlike attributes, and very few of them can already do it. Marduk has no particular desire to do that. He wants to stay with the material. But I think it's going to be interesting if people don't wake up and open their minds and truly start to read what Christ taught them, because Christ is one of the Anunnaki, and he told them plainly 2,000 years ago on his way to Golgotha, climbing up the hill, when the women of Jerusalem are weeping all over the place at this terrible happening. And he says quite strongly to them, women, why do you weep? Don't weep for me. If this is what happens when the wood is wet, you wait and see what will happen when the wood is dry. Well, now the wood is dry because we're coming to the end of the cycle. He also tells them, I will be coming back, and when I do, I'll be bringing the sword. I won't be bringing peace. I'll be bringing the sword. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the Jesus is not some sweet, namby-pamby person who is going to bow down and, you know, be all sweetness and light. He's one tough cookie, and he's going to come back and take control. Right? Loving, forgiving, nurturing, absolutely, as are all the Anunnaki in their relationship to humans, with the exception possibly of Enlil, who was never in favor of the human race, right? But and his son Ninurta never was particularly either. He was a bit of a conniver. But the majority of them have a very fatherly, nurturing feeling towards the humans on this planet, as well as responsibility. Christ himself, though, is no pushover. He's incredibly powerful, incredibly strong-willed, and is one way or another, he's going to get the people on this planet to fly right. And so they need to open their eyes and recognize this. And a really good start, I think, because this is a physically real planet where physical things matter. It matters, right? You can't just wander off onto a cloud and say the physical is not important. You just have to have the spiritual. You have to have mind, body, and spirit. You have to have all three. And this is the nature of this experience on this planet. And I think a really good starting place, which would be non-invasive for every single Christian out there, is to shed the idea that Christ was some poor, poverty-stricken person who only lived with poor people and who was poor all his life, because that is a plain pack of lies. It is simply not true. And if they read their own book, the Bible, they will see that. Christ was born of the lineage of David, out of Jesse. He was born a prince of Israel, and the gifts he was given of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, apart from being the most valuable things on the planet, would have been enough to set his family up as millionaires for a lifetime. So the idea that there was any poverty to do with the birth of Christ is ridiculous. He was born a prince, and that's why they killed him. It was a royal killing, right? The Romans didn't want to have a fight with Herod, so they went along with Herod and said, okay, get rid of him, right? But he came to take Herod's throne. And next time when he comes, he's not going to take no for an answer. And that actually was the deal at the council meeting that I mentioned to you ages ago, when I said they had a big council meeting. That was the deal. He was a junior member of the council. He volunteered for the job to come down as the Christed one. And he said, I will do that on the condition that if they reject me and kill me, the council guarantees I get a second shot to come back and rule this planet. And this is really about the family feud between the Enlilites and the Enkyites. Which house gets the rulership of this planet? And I leave it to you and your listeners to work out who they think Christ is. It's a fairly simple equation. If you look at the history, it's political, and it's about rulership on this planet. And it's just going to be really interesting to see it. I'm very excited about it because I happen to think it's going to be very good. I think it's going to be wonderful for humanity. A real chance to evolve.
We're just running out of time, so we're going to pass the baton and begin to wrap up. It's about 1:45. Sasha, do you have anything you want to add or say?
Oh, well, I want to hear this forever, but there's one question I really want to ask is about your Aunt Inanna. Did you know that's Ereshkigal's older sister?
Ereshkigal.
Inanna. He's talking about Inanna.
Yeah, so I want to know if she mellowed out. What's become of her?
Actually, she is on the planet right now. And she's living in Canada. She's a remarkable person. But she hasn't changed in nature one bit. Let's put it that way. Still extremely, can I say, demanding? Would that be a fair thing to say?
Yes,
but an incredible person with incredible knowledge and very powerfully connected, and really just lives up in Canada.
So Billy,
I've met quite a few people.
Oh, we'll have to talk about that. I want to give Billy a chance because we're running out of time.
Yeah, I know Billy's you're an expert on the Bible.
He's waiting here patiently. Okay, go ahead, Billy. What would you like to add, or where would you like to go?
This has all been a very good talk, definitely. I do know that based on the ancient record, there was a civilization on the moon, our moon here, which is actually a captured moon from the collision with Tiamat. But that there are people still living there on the moon. There was a banishment. I forget the gentleman's name. He's one of the Anunnaki, was banished actually to live on the moon, and they actually even survived the actual last pyramid war, which extended to the moon and beyond. And they live inside the moon. And evidence of this is from the NASA black box data, which we're fortunate enough to be able to get access to through the Freedom of Information Act, and it was made public. So we have the actual NASA black box Apollo 11 mission data. Not only do we have the mission black box print, we also have the mission voice files from the actual mission itself. So these are the voice files and the print that the black box takes. If an astronaut sneezes or coughs, it records that. Everything is recorded that they say on the way up on the mission. So in that, on one of the black box, I think it's page 98, and I'll send this to you as well. I'll send you the whole black box PDF file, so you can add that to your website as well. I think it's page 97 and 98. They are actually now coasting over the moon and looking for their landing spot. But as they're going, they actually see this, what Buzz calls a concave crater, okay? And then they're looking and they actually say, look at the people down there. I bet they never get out. So there's obviously people living underneath domes. This is a hot thing here. I mean, this is smoking hot.
Yeah.
And there's more. I mean, it's there's another section where I think let me see, I remember who's speaking here. Might have been Neil. He says, boy, look at that crater. You can probably see them right there. I'm reading the actual black box paper now. Yes, that is what I was talking about just a minute ago. It's kind of hard to believe that's volcanic and formed by some faulting, isn't it? I don't believe that. It's just a perfect straight line. I mean, it just goes on and on and on as they're having this casual conversation about the people living on the moon inside these craters. So there are obviously underground craters with some type of probably skylights or openings on top where you can see into them. And I sent an image to you, Janet, a little while ago. It's my greatest moon capture ever. And that made TV and international news. And that is basically a gigantic dome structure, kind of like what they're talking about here on these black box tapes. And how I got that image, it was actually from the LIM taking a video of the command module on its ascent. And I noticed that this guy, because I wanted to find something on the moon that was so old, some imagery that was so old, or some video that was so old that would be hard to use Photoshop, because Photoshop wouldn't have existed that long ago, or smudging techniques would have been very, very antiquated. And I saw this video, and I was like, from the NASA archives, and I go, oh my God, I think that's a dome. So I took the video, and right away I pulled it into Photoshop. I just screenshotted it, pulled it into Photoshop, and the only thing I did was turn the contrast down. So when I turned the contrast down, the dome started showing. Then I took the burn tool and just gently rubbed the burn tool over the dome to take away some of the smudging that they put on there, and it just became so clear. All the structures are inside. And if you use a measuring tool that NASA has available on their website, you find that the structures inside that dome are approximately 1 to 2 miles high. Super massive structures. Yes, super massive.
Yeah.
And that one dome, literally millions of people can live in that one dome structure. If they're our body height, our height, and our size. If they're bigger than us, then maybe not. But if they're the average size of an average human, millions of people can live there. Now, if they could be bigger, but that to me just really confirmed everything that I've read in the ancient text. And then to know that they're actually talking about people being alive and on the moon right now, which is why there's a big controversy about the moon. People are saying, oh, we never went to the moon, it was a hoax and all this other kind of stuff. They're wrong. Yes, we went to the moon, and yes, we lied about it. Okay, they knew that what was up there. They had already had satellites orbiting the moon, taking photos. They had missions to the moon long before Apollo 11. Unmanned missions and satellite missions. So they knew it was there. But when they got a human being there and landed on the surface and saw really what was there, and they most likely landed in that exact position because they were going to most likely acquire something that was on the ground or available to them at that point, or maybe some type of a negotiation or a handoff was made between us and the people there. Whatever the case may be, they definitely broadcasted a lie to the world of what was really up there. And so it's not that we didn't go to the moon, because we did go to the moon, but it's just that what we discovered up there has been suppressed from the world civilization of this planet. And that's the truth of it all. They don't want you to know what's really up there. For whatever reason, it's still been kept a secret. And people say, well, how can they keep a secret this long? It's very, very easy. The United States has so much power over this planet because of their dominance in the military-industrial complex. And then also because of that dominance, they've acquired so many rights to embargoes and trades with other countries. So if you're a country that, like India, for example, that wants to expose what's on the Mars, well, we're going to come to you and say, listen, we control your trade for wheat and rice, for fuel, for so-and-so. If you, and if we don't directly control, we indirectly control through one of our allies. So if you expose this information to the general public, we are going to cut that off. We're going to cut off your assets. We're going to cut off your trade. We're going to put an embargo on your country. So what happens? They fall in line. And then they sign the documents, and they sign these things for 100, 200-year agreements. So this is why it's so easy for them to keep the whole thing so hush-hush, because they literally control the world economy. Until that's lifted, until that's gone. That control over the world economy is gone, which is really ultimately ruled over by the Rothschild and Rockefeller Foundation. But overall, through the American government is how they've been able to really put the clamps through the military-industrial complex. Until that's gone, this will continue to be hush-hush, and the only disclosure you'll get is how we are doing it now through gradual, soft disclosures. And as they decide to roll it out, a drip at a time, eventually everybody will get the full picture. But it's just an amazing story, and I just can't wait to see the day that it's, the full truth will probably never be given out, but at least to the point where the average person will wake up and know that there's a lot more going on right above their head than they ever knew.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So right on. Billions of our dollars go into these establishments, and we don't have any control or feedback on it.
Nothing.
Go ahead,
The whole. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I think what you just said is absolutely true. And, of course, Janet and Sasha both know my husband, George, so they know I know all that stuff as well because I live with George. But I don't want you to get me wrong here. I'm no bibliophile, right? That's not the way I go normally. But listening to that reiterated the way you just said it, which I also agree is absolutely true and correct. It reminds me, and David Ningashita was always telling me, he said, pay attention to the parable of the 7 wise and the 7 foolish virgins. And that's the story in the Bible where there's going to be a wedding feast, and, the wise virgins fill their lamps with oil ready for the feast in the evening, and the foolish ones play in the garden, and then when the feast comes in the evening and the bridegroom arrives, their lamps aren't filled and they can't go into the wedding. Well, in that, I would make the analogy that refers to all those people who actually listen to your radio show, to the people like Billy who are out there spreading what is true. It's like a global underground movement of truth that's out there, and the majority are still saying these people are crazy people. They talk to people they can't see, or they believe in UFOs, or don't pay any attention to them. But that level of people who are paying attention, who are listening and asking the questions, these, I believe, are like the wise virgins. They're filling their oil lamps. They're filling their knowledge and their understanding with truth, so that they will be the ones to really take things over when the time comes. And the time is coming very shortly. It's not long to 225 now. I'll be 80 next week, so I may not last till 225. But a lot of people that I know will. And when that arrives, they will be the ones that are shining, that have the knowledge, that know the truth, and can step forward. I dread to think what will happen to the rest of them, who won't listen or open their minds to possibilities.
Right.
Billy, that was brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
When you mentioned 2025, there's a reason why the elites are trying to leave here. A lot of elites are trying to actually go and leave this planet by 2025. They're trying to get off, and it's all being headed on by Elon Musk. They want to get off this planet by that time frame. And I think that's part of the reason. There's a big change, or something big is coming to this planet. They're not really saying exactly what it is, whether it's a geological, whether it's economical collapse, whether it's a return of the Anunnaki. Something.
This year, 2017, David told me, is the closest that the crossing planet will be to Earth. So this year we can expect major geological events, of course, but also the socioeconomic effects as well as the geophysical effects. But we can also expect massive landings, because they're well within landing range, have been for some months now, and will continue to be through 2017 into the early part of 2018. So this is going to be a very interesting year. And then as they calculate, the break in the space-time continuum occurs 225, which isn't that far away. It's, the time will fly by.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully hopefully we'll be ready. I would think that many who are trying to leave the planet, and I agree with you, they are, I think they're very afraid, and I think they probably have somewhere in their subconscious the idea that if they get dead and just hang out in the astral plane, they can avoid all the upheaval and come back later.
Yeah, it's possible.
Which they probably will do. And I know there have been many efforts, and you will probably know about this, Billy, much more than I do, but in the scientific field to mess about with time, to try and put time back, literally, to move it back, to give themselves more opportunity to do the things that they think will help them through this transition. And the reality is that the only thing that will get you from one side of the transition to the other is self-awareness. Claiming your, I want to say for everybody out there, never mind what you believe, never mind what you've been taught. I don't care what anybody believes. Just believe this, that you need to claim your immortality. You need to be able to stand there and say, my name is so-and-so, and I am potentially an immortal being, and hang on to that. Hang on to that so that you can get through the break in the space-time continuum and out the other side into a new future.
We're about out of time. Final words. We got 3 minutes or a couple minutes or maybe 1 minute. Final words. How do we reach you? Gillian, do you have a website? You don't have anything right now.
No, I don't have. I don't have anything like that. I don't have really anything to offer anybody. So
you need to reach Gillian. You can write to me. Okay, Billy. Your website.
Yes. You can reach me at forbiddenknowledge.com with the number 4, forbiddenknowledge.com, on Instagram, Forbidden Knowledge, Facebook, Forbidden Knowledge. I appreciate everybody.
Oh.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you, listeners. Say goodbye.
Mahalo.
Mahalo, aloha.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
You need some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. At Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Vrichjan, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Pye.